Back to the daily grind. The channel's getting false flagged by triggered trolls, so make sure you subscribe to the new channel. Let's get to the MMA news. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson has verbally agreed to fight Jorge Masvidal at Madison Square Garden, UFC 217. But hold up, not so fast. I mean, this is one thing a lot of people about Jorge Masvidal that a lot of people don't know. A lot of people verbally agree to fight Jorge Masvidal, but a lot of these contenders really don't want no smoke with Jorge Masvidal. Jorge Masvidal is one of those fighters, man. He's one of my favorite fighters, easily one of my favorite fighters. If you don't know his background, he came up from the Kimbo backyard street fights. He had crazy hands, man. I remember back in high school, I used to watch those, and now once Jorge Masvidal was on my map in UFC. Once he was on my radar and I did the research on Jorge Masvidal and realized where he came from, and I remembered there's a specific video, man, that really it'll just show you how skilled he's been with the hands for years. There was a way bigger guy. I'm just going to talk about this for a second. There was a way bigger guy in those Kimbo fights that he fought, man. It was a way bigger dude. He was like one of Kimbo's like rising prospects named Ray. Way bigger dude. Jorge Masvidal came out and he beat him up the first time. They wanted a rematch because they were like, man, how did this little dude just whoop this big dude? Jorge Masvidal was the little dude. He had like a motherfucking Pretty Ricky style ponytail back then, and he whooped his ass the second time, straight one-on-one, straight hands. It was crazy. And I mean, and that, of course, the street fights aren't MMA level. But Jorge Masvidal is one of the few people who translated from those backyard street fights to become very successful in MMA. He fought not only in the UFC, he fought all around the world. He fought against high-level guys outside of the UFC all around the world and still was able to rack up wins. He doesn't have as many casual fans, but I think that's because a lot of people don't know that story about him, man. Because I'll tell you, whenever I tell people about Jorge Masvidal, there's no way they don't tune in, because I'm literally excited every time I tell somebody about this shit, because I don't know. But anyways, Jorge Masvidal, so he fucks guys up, man. He's got hands out of this world. He's got good defensive wrestling, and he's got good, defensive jiu-jitsu. Damian Maia, Jorge Masvidal used to fight at 155 pounds, but he lost a lot of split decisions, and it would be fights that you definitely, man, if you watch him, you'd feel like he won. He lost multiple split decisions, so it was like he was getting robbed, and he said, I'm not going to keep killing myself to make this weight if I'm going to keep getting fucking robbed, so that's why he's fighting at 170. So now that he's 170, he's still looking good. I mean, he's been fighting against bigger people his entire life, so he's got no problem coming up here and putting these hands on welterweights, which is what he actually did to Donald Cowboy Cerrone. He did it to, Jake Ellenberger. With that fight where Jake Ellenberger's foot got stuck in the cage, Jorge Masvidal was really fucking clipping him up. He was about to finish him. That really, I mean, the narrative became, the foot got stuck in the cage. Is it going to get overturned? But it wasn't going to get overturned because Jorge Masvidal was clipping him up the entire fight. If his foot didn't get caught in the cage, he was about to get finished, just like Cowboy got finished. He had to finish Cowboy twice because the ref let Cowboy, even though he got knocked out at the very end of the first round, they let him survive to the second round. Jorge came out there, knocked him out again in the second round. I'm telling you guys, Jorge Masvidal is like a fucking dark horse. I mean, a lot of people are asleep on him. He did lose to Damian Maia, but it was arguable. He did more damage to Damian Maia. The only thing is, Damian Maia, he used to fight at 185 pounds. Jorge used to fight at 155 pounds. So Damian is naturally just the bigger guy. So he was able to impose his game plan better than he was against someone like Tyron Woodley, who's bigger and was able to just shake him off. Jorge's a smaller dude, so Damian was able to just wrap him up and sit on him like a backpack, like literally a backpack, and that's what he tried to just control him. And he wasn't able to submit Jorge the entire time. As skilled as Damian Maia is, he wasn't able to submit Jorge Masvidal in the fight, and that was a #1 contender fight. So Jorge Masvidal is a smaller welterweight that was fighting for the #1 contender spot. So Jorge's very slept on, and a lot of people verbally agree to fight him, but he has to call him out with that hashtag ho status, because they'll agree to fight, and then when it's time to actually fight, they'll talk about injuries, or this came up, or that came up. So what I'm saying is, it's interesting that Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is now coming out and sounding all gung-ho to fight Jorge Masvidal after we've been hearing about the reports and rumors of Jorge Masvidal being offered an interim title shot versus Robbie Lawler. Because before Jorge Masvidal, the only reason he hasn't fought for a couple months is because he's been waiting on one of these top contenders that all have excuses to not fight him. So Wonderboy's been, yeah, I'm healing up from an injury and then I'll be to fight you, bud. Yeah. But he hasn't been talking about it, hasn't been talking about being ready to fight. But now we've been hearing about this Robbie Lawler Jorge Masvidal fight really getting some legs, and now here he comes with the radio interview verbally agreeing to fight Jorge Masvidal. But what if Jorge Masvidal's already got the Robbie Lawler fight? So now it's going to be like, okay, yeah, I was ready to fight him, but he already was fighting someone else. And I mean, I'm fine with that. I mean, I like Stephen Thompson a lot. As far as, I mean, he's a cool, I like him. I didn't like his performance in the Tyron Woodley fights at all. I think that lowered his stock. But I am very interested in Jorge Masvidal versus Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Because Jorge Masvidal, he's got some fucking hands out of this world, but he's going to come forward. But he's also a smart fighter, so and he doesn't have to worry about any takedowns from Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. So his defensive wrestling doesn't really matter this fight, but he's a striker, so to say. As far as, I mean, he's got some kicks too. He throws body kicks and stuff. So Jorge Masvidal, he's a overall, he's got hands out of this fucking world, but he's a good overall fighter. But with him being a striker and Wonderboy being a counter striker, is he gonna take a page out of Tyron Woodley's book and fight smart versus a counter striker, which is fight boring? Which is, I mean, it depends though, because Michael Johnson fought versus Edson Barboza. Well, Edson Barboza is not as much a counter striker as he is as a striker, so it was smart for him to just crowd Edson Barboza. But versus Wonderboy Thompson, is Jorge Masvidal going to be able to get in versus a bigger guy? Because most welterweights are bigger than Jorge, just a little bit. But it doesn't mean anything because he beats most guys. He's still better than most guys. He's got his skills literally. He has some of the highest skill, in my opinion, in the game. So, how would it work though? Would he be able to clip? Would he be able to get in there versus Wonderboy? Would Wonderboy counter strike him? When he's going in, would he get clipped up by Wonderboy? Because that's when Wonderboy succeeds. Whenever somebody's just rushing into his counter striking style. So it would be interesting, man. It could either be a really boring fight, or Jorge Masvidal might just have the skill to get in there through his counter striking ability and still clip him up. Michael Johnson style versus Edson Barboza. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities for the fight. It could be good, but it could be bad. I would actually like the idea of Cowboy versus Wonderboy. Stephen Thompson versus Donald Cerrone, and then you could have Robbie Lawler versus Jorge Masvidal. I mean, either way, we need these welterweights, shuffling the deck a little bit, like Tyron said, and seeing who the next clear-cut #1 contender is. So they're gonna have to fight some. But I mean, we just had Robbie Lawler versus Cowboy, so those guys can't fight again. So I mean, I don't know if Cowboy wants to fight. He does want to fight again. He's been saying so. We could get like Cowboy versus Wonderboy at Madison Square Garden. And then we could have Robbie and Jorge at Madison Square. I mean, they both want to fight at Madison Square Garden. I don't know exactly how it's gonna play out, but pretty much I'll end it on this. The gist of this is, I mean, a lot of people say that they verbally agreed to fight Jorge, but when it comes down to it, they don't really want to fight Jorge. So I'll let you guys be the judge. If you guys think who should be the next fight, would you guys rather it be Wonderboy versus Jorge Masvidal, or would you rather be Wonderboy versus Cowboy with Jorge versus Robbie? I mean, there's a lot of good fights at the top of the welterweight division while we wait on Tyron Woodley to come back from his injury. But it is what it is, man. Let the hitters know what the fuck you think about. I think this is all interesting news in the comments, man. I'm out. What's the first thing you should do after you rear-end a car on the interstate?